Okay, this is how to build a video cued assignment. That's one, again, where the students are watching a lecture video and questions will pop up as they watch the video. So we'll come into My Open Math and like you could put this anywhere you want, but say I want to put it right here, then I'll add an assessment and maybe I'll call this Video Cue Demo. You can type in whatever you want here, or you can just copy. If you use the same instructions for all of your videos, you can just copy from another video. Obviously, you have the keep open for ungraded practice after the due date. I always do that for all my lecture videos. Okay, now we're going to have some questions to put in here. Maybe you wrote your lecture video with particular questions in mind. You know, what is the mean of this distribution? And then you expect a question to pop up. Maybe it's multiple choice, whatever. You have to already have those questions built. But just for illustrative purposes here, I'm just going to choose a couple of questions. Maybe I'll choose 3 questions, and then I'll come down here and add them. You actually have multiple choices. You can add as a group. I just always add using defaults, 1 point each. Next, we're going to go to define video cues. And now we pick our video. So maybe I'll choose this one. So I'll just copy the URL and hit load video. And now I have to title each of my questions. So it looks like those were tension, equation. So now the students will be able to see, they will be able to see these titles. So obviously you probably want better titles than that. This is just for illustrative purposes. And now we're going to tell My Open Math when, at what timestamps these questions will pop up. Now you can just let the video play, and then you can just hit, as it's playing, you can just hit grab, and it will grab, it'll grab that timestamp. And so I'm just going to make up numbers here. Sure, 7:17. So at that timestamp, this second question will pop up. Now, this is important. The last one, you don't want too close to the end, but you don't want it too far from the end. I recommend having the last question pop up about 5 seconds from the end of the video. So it's 46:15. I would do like 46:10. And then you just hit submit. And then you hit done. And now you have that assignment. Now, this is important. When you go to teacher preview, you won't even be able to see the video. You'll just see the questions. Sometimes people get confused by that. Sorry. If I go to student preview, now students can see play video and they'll play it. And at some point, that first question will pop up. So I always start every one of mine with, are you taking good notes? A multiple choice question. And the students will answer the question, like whatever the answer is here. And then once they do that, in Canvas, they'll have a next button down here. You don't want them hitting that next button. That takes them to the next assignment. You want them to hit this continue. This curve sketching example here with a rational function. And so forth. Now the students can do this. So you got to watch out for this. The students can come here and just answer the questions without actually watching your video. So say they go through and they answer all 3 of these questions correctly without watching the video. Now they've got 3 points in their Canvas grade book, but they didn't even watch your video. To me, they should earn the points for watching the video. There is a way for you to check and see if they did that. So, let me just go to a different class. I can go to any of the videos and I can look at grades. And if I go to show score list, I can see how much time they spent in the video. So if you see somebody's time, if you have a 10-minute video and they spent 8 seconds in that video and they answered all three of your questions, they clearly didn't watch the video. And I actually do go through and check this stuff. Okay, and that's a good place to stop.